Good evening, everyone. My name's Kirk, and I'm an alcoholic. And it's, gosh, this place does have a special meaning for me. Years ago, I attended the meetings when they were downstairs, and I wasn't quite ready to surrender back then. But I knew a day would come that something like this might happen, and I'm truly blessed, Eddie, to be here tonight and speaking at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, Bradford, thank you for the kind words. This alcoholic is a little obsessive, and Bradford asked me to do this like New Year's Day, so I've thought about it more than once over the past couple months, to say the least. To get the particulars out of the way, my home group is the Keeping It Sober group in Aberdeen. We meet on Tuesdays for a closed discussion meeting at 8 o'clock, and on Saturday night we have an open speaker meeting. And I know a lot of you attend that meeting, so it's good to see a lot of my home group members out there. Thank you. I don't know why you'd want to come and hear me over here, but I do appreciate the support. My sobriety date is December 27th of 2005. And I have a couple caveats. One is, already you can tell, I'm somewhat emotional, not pathetically so, but I cry in movies and all that stuff. But this stuff just means so much to me that I just have to reflect back and all that stuff that transpired. And I was a long time in getting here. Obviously, I brought my big book, and it's like every other big book. It's got my name on it, which means I went to a treatment facility. That was back in 1988. That's 25 years ago. And I stand here with about 7 years of sobriety. A lot transpired in those 18 years in between, and not all of it was bad. Most of it was, in my mind, horrific. That incomprehensible demoralization, all that garbage that, if you're one of us, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I feel that I was born an alcoholic. I guess there's a certain genetic disposition in my family. I know now that my grandfather on my father's side was an alcoholic. I come from a family that the bigger the issue, the less it's talked about, and I never knew that my grandfather had a drinking problem, but after he died, some of the pieces now make sense that that's exactly what he was. And I have 4 brothers, and one of my brothers is also a member of this fellowship, so 2 out of 5, that's 40%, so I guess genetically we are predisposed to that. And I'm the middle child, and I did nothing to dispel the theory that the middle child is the problem child. I wasn't a bad kid per se, but I guess mischievous. In the 12 and 12, it talks about defiance being one of the characteristics that's common amongst alcoholics, and I was defiant from the word go. My family was very, very loving, very caring. I never wanted for anything. We weren't rich, but we certainly weren't poor. So I lived, looking back on it, a charmed life, actually. I didn't think so at the time because I was born discontent. I think I was born restless, irritable, and discontent, and I still have to watch that to date because I can get in one of those snitty moods in a heartbeat. So growing up, my parents were strict. They never hit me or anything, but when they told me to do something, I better do it. And they cared enough to send all of us to a private parochial school, and that involved being taught by nuns, that they too were very strict. I had two older brothers. They were constantly telling me what to do. And, I was the recalcitrant schoolboy. Recalcitrant meaning stubbornly opposed to authority and guidance. I just hated it. I hated it. You can tell an alcoholic, but you can't tell him much. And man, I just really, really had a hard time with dealing with all this stuff that was dumped on me. And here I am, a kid. In terms of alcohol, I grew up in a small town in Michigan, and a long time ago when alcohol was not frowned upon at all. It was very socially acceptable. My parents drank. I don't think I ever saw them drunk, but they entertained a lot. That was part of my father's business, and a lot of the friends that would come over to the house were from foreign countries. The German guys brought this nasty brown beer that I sampled on occasion. The Japanese guys brought these big bottles of rice wine that was just god-awful. But I felt obligated to sample everything that was brought, I never caught a buzz off of that stuff. It was just vile, It was god-awful stuff. But, I do remember the first time that I felt the effect of alcohol, and I know I was pretty young because I was wearing my PJs and they had the little footies in them, so, and I don't wear them now, so that was a long time ago. My father said, would you go to the refrigerator and get me a beer? And I said, sure. Can I have one? He said, go ahead. My mom wasn't home or anything like that, so, I brought him one, and I downed this thing in 2 sips and didn't get sick, and I just felt this instant glow that from head to toe, that, all the stuff that I had to endure as this little kid, I could endure it. I felt okay, and as a 8 or 9 year old kid, I didn't know many certainties, but I knew for certain that I would feel that effect again one way or another. I would seek that feeling out, and I did. My drinking didn't really take off until I got into high school. I had a job, and my parents, they provided me the things I needed. If I wanted something, if I wanted a new bike, I had to go out and earn the money and get it. So, I shoveled snow in the winter. I mowed lawns in the summer. I got this job at the corner store. This corner store happened to sell beer, wine, and liquor. And so, here I am in high school, and I have access. I have the means, motive, and opportunity to do what I want on weekends. My friends would come over and pick me up and ride, or we'd just cruise around. And there was one neighborhood we went to on every weekend, and I would sneak a pint out the back door or whatever, and it was just a weekend thing, and there were no consequences or anything. Just get a little buzz on. But even back then, I knew I drank differently from my friends because they thought that a six-pack was plenty for 3 people, and I thought they were insane, and 2, from the get-go, I was a blackout drinker, and I know now that normal drinkers don't black out, especially when they're 14 or 15 years old, every weekend. But what alcohol did for me, I was always small for my age, and not even my age, just small, but I was really small, and I went from 8th grade, left those lovely nuns, and my 8th grade class had like 20 students in it, and then I went to a public high school, and there were over 1,000 freshmen, and here I am, this 5'1", I didn't weigh 100-pound kid in the middle of giants, and I was raw with fear. I was afraid to go to school, but I didn't want anyone to know it. But on the inside, I was just, wow. School, that was a big adventure. But I always loved sports, and obviously at that size, I didn't play footballer, and I wasn't the power forward on the basketball team, but, you know, I did play golf and tennis, and I lettered in tennis my freshman year. So, you know, now, being a letter holder, a varsity letter holder, all the other jocks had to kind of accept me into their clique, and you know, so I'm in, and you know, a lot of the fear was gone, and those guys like to party too, and you know, what alcohol did for me in those days, it empowered me. It gave me the courage to, you know, talk to girls, you know, to go to a dance and ask a girl to dance, you know, to raise my hand in class, you know, simple little things like that. And actually, you know, my grades in high school went from very average to very good after I drank on a regular basis. So, you know, it was like, you know, kind of like Popeye eating spinach or something, you know. And here I am, and I am ready. And, you know, so, and, you know, maybe by my senior year in high school, we would sneak out during lunch hour and, you know, have a few beers and go the last 2 classes buzzed or something like that. But I never did anything really bad. Never had any, well, I did wreck a car or 2 here and there, but, you know, you know, my parents thought that was a big deal, and it was for me at the time. But, you know, by God's grace, I didn't hurt anyone or myself. You know, so I go to college, and, you know, I was always haunted when I was a kid, you know, that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know. You know, my answer was, I'll let you know when I grow up. Wow, you know, it's, I'm still not quite sure what I want to be when I grow up. You know, but my summers were spent hanging out at a golf course. You know, I'd hop on my bike, I'd ride to the golf course. I had a locker there, my clubs were there. And, you know, just so happens when it came time to go to college, there was this curriculum at a small college close to home that had this golf curriculum. You know, I go to school for 6 months and then go work at a golf club for 6 months, and I said, that's it, that's what I want to do. You know, I'm going to learn to hang out at the golf course in a professional manner. And you know, I mean, I just absolutely loved college, you know, and my drinking, again, it escalated, and that I drank more than just on the weekends. The weekends were Thursday through Sunday now. But at the same time, I went to class, you know. I got decent grades. You know, college was kind of stressful in that I was expected to go to class, get good grades. I had a job in my spare time. I was supposed to act like an idiot, like most college kids do, and I excelled at that. And you know, I was supposed to play good golf, and you know, I didn't have any spare time, it seemed. You know, so I was always busy doing something. But you know, for the 4 years that I was there, you know, you know, my parents were kind of footing the bill for school, and I felt obligated to, you know, not come home after the first semester. And I hear that so often, but, you know, I don't know why it is that I didn't end up back home after the first semester, but I made it all the way through on time, you know, and my first internship, here I am, I'm 18 years old, and I grew up in Michigan, and my counselor tells me I'm going to spend the winter in Miami, Florida. And I just say, yeehaw. And boy, you know, I, kind of a sheltered punk kid from Bay City, Michigan, goes to Miami, Florida, and, you know, I learned an awful lot about life that winter. Learned an awful lot about what eventually became my vocation, but, you know, there were different substances, and out of respect for AA, I won't go into that at all, but, you know, I got, you know, if they were doing it, I was doing it, and, you know, wow, that was quite an experience. And also I learned that there's never another reason to spend a winter again in Michigan, and since 1980, I haven't spent another winter up there. So that part I got quickly. So I graduated from college, and I am really, really high on life. I really am. I felt like, I had been around the country kind of, and things were looking up. I'd learned a lot. I had met a lot of very influential people in my industry, and I was really encouraged and excited about getting out into the world. And my first job was at a really, really exclusive country club in southern Wisconsin, and only open 6 months out of the year, so I didn't have to worry about spending the winter up there. And I could see that the work was going to be hard, but if I stayed there a couple of years, good things were going to happen. I was on the uphill. I was going places, and I don't know what happened. Somewhere between the second and third summer I was there, something about life. All the enthusiasm was starting to wane. I was working my butt off. The guy I worked for got all the credit and the money, and I didn't feel that life was really fair at that time. And coincidentally, my drinking really, really got, it picked up in earnest. Not to the point, I still had those moral values that I wouldn't drink. I would never drink at work. I wouldn't drink before 5 o'clock. I started to reconsider those options or those values because I was really, really discontent with my lot in life. And that third summer I was there, I got my first DUI, and now I'm thinking, boy, look at me. I am such a loser, and it's all because of this job. And I get into this blame and this self-pity, and, I was really in a bad place. And I just told the guy, look, I'm not coming back here. I'm getting out of here. And that winter, I faced a decision. And this is the point where I really feel that my alcoholism became my master. I no longer fought the idea that alcohol was my solution, but I embraced it. And every decision I made from that point forward was based on how it would affect my drinking. If it was going to affect my drinking adversely, be it a job, relationship, family, I didn't care. If it was going to affect it, I would find a way to make it that I was able to drink. I was offered 2 jobs that winter. One, really a good job, but it meant that I would have to really be a straight-laced, neat and tidy type person, or I could go work for a friend who was kind of an idiot savant like me at the time. And of course I chose to go work for my friend, and I knew it was in my heart I knew it was the wrong decision, but it allowed me to drink, and it allowed me to drink on the job, and so now it's 1983 or so, and I'm working, but I'm drinking all day, every day, and this went on for 4 years. My brother, I was the best man in his wedding, and I was in Florida working at the time, and I had to come home for the wedding, obviously, and I put on quite a display at that wedding. At a typical Michigan wedding, they've got the kegs of beer and the pitchers of 7 and 7s, and I got a beer in one hand, and I got a pitcher of 7 and 7s or screwdrivers in the other hand, and I pass out in the cloakroom, and my mom is not too pleased. My dad is really, really upset, to say the least, and thank God I could get on a plane the next day and bug on out of there. Later that winter, I was to the point where by that time, I had just gotten my second DUI and in Wisconsin again, so it was treated as a second offense, and they were looking for me. I owed the bank some money, and I was in a place where I couldn't deal with my problems. It's that acronym of fear, forget everything and run. I was on the run from all my troubles, and and the only way I knew to deal with that is to drink heavily, even more so. And I did, and to the point where I had to quit my job because it was interfering with my drinking. But at the same time, I couldn't pay my rent, so, what do I do? My parents, didn't approve of, obviously, where I was headed. They knew I was sick. I didn't realize at the time how sick I was, but I always had a safety net in my family, come thick or thin. They bail me out. So, I hated to do it, but I made the call and I said, can you send me some money? I got to pay my rent. And sure enough, a couple days later, the envelope comes and it's not money. It's a one-way plane ticket home. And I'm thinking, oh God. So I call my mom. She says, just get on the plane, please. So I have no other option. So I go home, and I'll never forget the look on my father's face when I got off that plane was just pure disgust. And my mom's face was fear. She couldn't believe what she was looking at. Physically I had really gone downhill, but I won't get into that. But so I'm in the back of the car. We're riding home and from the airport, and they, out of the blue, suggest that there's this treatment facility in town, and there's a bed opening on Friday. This was on a Tuesday, and and it's your choice. Do you want to go? And what option do I have? I'm held hostage. So where am I going to go? I don't have a car. I can't escape. And it's anyway. So I said yes. And those Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday were three of the most bizarre days that I've ever experienced. They didn't tell me I couldn't or could do anything. They just said, Friday at noon we're going to this treatment facility, and it's like everyone disappeared. And it's my parents' house, and the basement is full of booze, the refrigerator is full of booze. So what am I going to do? I got just smashed for 3 days, and I guess now if you go to a treatment facility, if you go there drunk, they won't let you in. Well, I guess I was afraid that they wouldn't think I needed any help, so I showed up, and I was really drunk when I got there, and I'm standing at the front desk. I'll never forget this, and there's people standing around waiting to go to lunch, and they're like, oh my God, someone reeks alcohol, and I'm looking around like, I wonder who that is. And I was a mess. They go see the doctor. He gives me a couple pills and says, you better go to bed. And I wake up at 7 and go to my first AA meeting, and wow. That was bizarre too. I'm going to stay drunk too long here if I get into that, but that was quite an experience. I learned an awful lot in that treatment facility. I got this book, the 12 grand big book. I learned that I was an alcoholic, and you know what? That was an explanation for me. I have a disease, and there's a reason I drink like I do. And I also learned that, I wasn't ready to stop drinking at that time. I was going to lay low, take a time out, and kind of get back in shape for work and everything else. I also learned, they didn't really stress an awful lot about spirituality when I was in treatment, or if they did, I wasn't willing to listen. But every Sunday, there was an optional spiritual service, and I opted not to go to that. And, I think, in the back of my mind, from just what little I had read or garnered through these sessions, marathon sessions all day, every day, that if I got too close to God, I might screw up my drinking. So, I stayed away from it. I really did. And, I, to this day, until I surrendered, and I've always believed there is a God, but, my feeling was I'm going to try not to bother him, and I hope that he just doesn't bother me. So I'm not, an atheist by any means, but, I was full of self-reliance and what I thought was self-sufficiency, but I certainly wasn't self-sufficient. So I get out of there, I don't drink for about 2 years. There was maybe a little medicinal marijuana at Christmas or whatever, but there was no drinking for about 2 years. And, I was on a date, and I was out in Arizona, and the girl says, well, aren't you going to have a glass of wine with dinner? And I was almost too embarrassed to say, well, no. So, and that one glass of wine, started the ball rolling. And everything they say in this book I've experienced and found to be true. The only thing I haven't experienced is the death part, but I know that I'm eligible for that too if I decide to change my ways. But anyway, I was drinking again, worse than before, within a couple months. And, I ended up back here, and I meet this girl, and we're going to get married, and she realizes that I am not good to drink. So both her and her parents, said, you got to cut this drinking stuff out. And so I did. And this was 1993, and I'm supposed to get married in May, right over in the Episcopal Church here in town. And in March, she decides that she doesn't want to get married, and for this alcoholic, there's only one way to cope with that devastating blow, and that was to start drinking again. And I did in earnest, and I hit it pretty hard, and but held everything together in terms of my job was never in jeopardy, and this went on through the summer. That August, my father died, and so I had to go home for a couple weeks and try and hold it together there, but I couldn't stay sober even up there. But when I got back down here after that, the game was on. I was, it didn't matter. All day, every day, I was drunk, and I also realized that I couldn't stand being here in town anymore. I had to find a new job. So even though I call myself a functioning alcoholic at that time, as best as I could function under those circumstances. Here I am, I'm going to go on this rigorous job search, and I find a good job in Rhode Island, and people say, well, why do you want to go to Rhode Island? And I said, well, I'm going to be the boss. And what did Milton say? He said he'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven, and that was my thought. I'm getting out of here, I'm going to be my own boss, and everything will be better. And it wasn't better. No matter where you go, there's always someone. The owner of the golf course up there was my boss, and he was an avaricious, overbearing. These are my excuses. That guy was a saint to put up with me for a year, is what he was. But he didn't fire me. And there was no way I could do that job sober. So here I am, I make it through that year, and at the end of the year he said, we want you to come back, we really do, but the drinking's got to stop. And I said, okay, well, I'm sorry, but I can't come back under those terms. And so here we go. Like I'm in any position. I told you I'm an idiot savant, and that's my thinking. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to be self-employed, which in AA parlance is unemployable. There's a driving range up there that I can teach, and I got hooked up with a wonderful golf school down in Texas, and I just made a mess everywhere I went. I made a mess of it because I couldn't do it sober, and it was obvious that I couldn't even. I thought I was the world's best actor and that I could act sober, but I was fooling no one. I got another DUI up in Rhode Island. Shortly after that, 4 friends of mine who are not in the program, who probably all eligible for it, intervened me. They just said, they came to me, there's a knock on my door one morning, and it's this guy, and I'm like, he's never up at this time of day, this can't be good, and so they intervened, and they said, look, you're killing yourself, you got to do something here, why don't you go back to AA? And so I did. I went back to AA for over 2 years, I didn't drink. I went to a lot of meetings. I had a sponsor, which, we went to dinner on Friday nights. I never took one step. I never admitted I was powerless and that my life was unmanageable, drunk or sober. I never did any of that, and because once again, in the back of my mind, and I didn't pray, in the back of my mind, I knew there would be a day that I would drink again. And I knew that taking these steps was going to screw up my drinking too, so I didn't want to get into that. And in the year 2000, one of those, my best friend, he died, and that hit me really hard, and it got me thinking, it's time for a change again. So I moved from Rhode Island back down here. And the adage, wherever I went, there I was. And so now I'm here. I hadn't had a drink in over 2 years and 4 months, something right along there. And I couldn't handle it. I drank again, and again, the progression amazed me, how I was worse than ever within a couple weeks. And I had an apartment right over on the corner here, catty corner from this building, and I lived there for 4 years, and I knew this place was here. I knew there was meeting in the Episcopal Church, and I knew there was, I was surrounded by AA, and I felt like a caged animal. I really did. I knew the meeting schedules here, and I knew when it was safe to come out of the house to go to the liquor store down here, and when it wasn't. Never on Monday at 7, never on Thursday at 7. I'd have to walk right by you people, and I didn't want to go out my backyard. And, I had the schedule, and my God, that was hard, and the blinds are drawn and all that, and, so I'm avoiding AA as well as I can for being, right in the middle of it. So my friends, they know that I'm not right, and now I am unemployable, and they say, you're crazy. You need to go see a psychiatrist. And I said, I think you're right. I need to go see a psychiatrist. So I do, and I go see to some reputable guy, and I'm sitting in. I've never been to one. I don't know what to do. I know I'm not going to tell him the truth. But so I'm sharing guardedly about what's going on with me, and he's over there writing, and I'm thinking he's taking notes. He's writing these prescriptions, and I know now for a fact that there are certain prescription medications that for this alcoholic, don't mix well. Valium and Xanax are 2 that come to mind, and. So I got these 4 bottles of pills, and they all have the red circle, the martini glass with the red circle and the line through it. So, in my refrigerator, there's vodka in the freezer and beer in the crispers. So I'm thinking, well, I better not take these with vodka. So I go in the crisper, and I'm taking these pills with beer, and I have a pretty adverse reaction. I started, it didn't take long that I became physically very ill, to the point that I got my last DUI. And, you know, the progressive nature of the disease, my first DUI wasn't bad. I blew like a .23. The last one, I blew like a .397 or something, just under .4. So, you know, here I am. And, you know, it's treated as a first offense, but it is really ripping me apart. And I'm getting ready to go to court on a Wednesday. So here I am. I decide I'm going to have this last blowout weekend before I go to court, and I'll be able to face the judge and whatever transpires. And so, you know, I take my pills, and I said, screw it. I'm not going to use it with beer. I'm going to get out the Absolute out of the freezer, and we're going to do this right. Well, I got violently ill. I'm throwing. It's gory, but you know, I was throwing up blood to make it simple. To the point where Sunday morning at about 3 a.m., I'm drinking ice water, and I drink ice water all day. And, you know, I want to go to the emergency room, but I'm afraid to. So I'm waiting for my neighbor to wake up Monday morning, and finally he gets up, and I said, can you take me to the hospital? And he goes, who are you going to visit? And I said, well, I'm going to check myself in. And he just gives me this sideways glance. Well, anyway, I get to the emergency room, and God, you know, they snake a tube down my nose, and you know, I'm thinking, they'll give me something, and I'll be on my way. They take the tube out, and now I'm on a gurney, and I just casually say, well, where are we going now? And they go, well, you're going to the ER. And you know, I had this emergency surgery, and they couldn't stop the bleeding, and I was in intensive care for 5 days. And I guess the girl I was dating at the time, you know, I had to be in court on Wednesday, but here I am in ICU unit. And so the doctor says, you're worried about this guy going to court? And, you know, I'm trying to save his life. You know, this is, you know, the point that I had gotten to. And, you know, so I survived that week, and I walked out of there again with the pills. And this is the insanity for me. I got home and took the Valium with a beer immediately upon release from the hospital. And the next year and a half wasn't very pleasant. And I finally, Christmas of 2005, I'm homeless, unemployable, and I'm both of those for a couple of years now. But I'm not living on the street. Again, the safety net, my family allowed me enough money to find a place to live. It was never of my own. But my mom called me and said, you know, one last chance. You know, your brother is willing to come pick you up and bring you home, you know, or that's it. You know, I'm severing all ties with you. And I'm like, my God, my mom said that. And then I'm thinking, Al-Anon. She found Al-Anon. And, you know, she had, and God bless her, you know, I mean, here I am running all over the country. She never knows where I am, what I'm into, you know, what I'm doing. The poor, I mean, she is really a saint. But anyway, so, you know, I say, okay, and I go home. And you know what? Without asking for help or anything, you know, I surrendered on that day. I was really shaky for a couple weeks and didn't go to a meeting for about 8 days. I didn't leave the house for about 8 days, kind of detoxed at home. But once I went to AA, you know, for whatever reason, and I didn't know why, I had this willingness that, well, it was desperation. I was given the gift of desperation in that I knew in my heart I could never drink again, but I could not stand or fathom a life where I would feel the way I felt at that time. I mean, I was just so full of guilt, shame, remorse. I was hopeless. I was helpless. You know, I just felt so low, and you know, I was ready to do whatever it took to get this feeling to go away. So, you know, I go to AA and I listen, and you know, God puts people on our path, and this wonderful man, you know, I'm still not to the point, and you know, I don't share a lot. For whatever reason, I think it's because I know nothing to share in here. Who said it? Mark Twain. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and be found out, you know, whatever. So, you know, I never shared much. So this man came to me and said, you know, you seem to be earnest about your recovery. I'll be your temporary sponsor, you know. So I didn't even ask him. He asked. He volunteered, and God bless him. You know, so he picks me up. We go to a meeting every day, and you know, a couple weeks into it, we're at breakfast, and out of the blue, he says, "Do you pray?" And I'm like, "Where'd this come from?" Out of right field, and I'm like, "Well, what does that got to do with anything?" I didn't say that, but the look on my face, you know, he could tell what I was thinking, and he said, "I'll take that as a no." He said, "You better start." And, you know, and this is how I took my second step, you know. And I said, you know, here I am, as a kid. I was an altar boy. I had to serve Mass twice a week. I had to go to Mass 3 days a week, you know. And I asked him, well, you know, pray. I mean, how do I pray? What do I pray for? He goes, did you drink today? And I said, well, no. He said, well, that's a blessing. You know, you go home and you say thank you. In the morning, you ask for help that, you know, that he you know, takes that desire to drink away for one more day. And that's how it started for me, you know. And so I'm on my knees every day, and, you know, everything just fell into place, and I couldn't wait to take the steps. You know, I'm thinking, okay, I'm somewhere around my third step, and I'm looking at the fourth step, and I'm overwhelmed, and you know, it's a daunting thing, and I'm afraid of it. And my sponsor just one day says, Saturday is a workshop on the fourth step, go. And I did, and you know, they gave me a format that is right out of the big book, you know, and I'm very good at filling in the blanks. You know, once you put it on paper, I can fill it in. I'm good at that, and I did, and you know, I got it done quickly, and I couldn't wait to do my fifth step, you know. And by that time, I had moved from home back down here, and did my fifth step with another sponsor, a guy, and I picked this sponsor, being the wonderful alcoholic that I am. I picked this guy as my sponsor because I knew that he had somewhat of a sordid past, and him hearing my fifth step was going to be nothing in comparison to what he had experienced in his life. So, you know, so I'm trying to make myself look better by picking my sponsor. You know, some are sicker than others. You know, but this man, the way he went about it, he shared with me a few things from his fifth step, and I'm like, wow, really? And you know, so when I shared mine, I'm like, you know, this is insignificant, and it, you know, in essence, everything on my inventory was insignificant, except in my mind, you know. But once I got that out, you know, well, I mean. For me, that was one of the most liberating experiences that I've had in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, from there on, you know, the seventh step prayer talks about, you know, we've got to get rid of the things that are a hindrance to my usefulness to God and my fellows. And I'm like, oh, so that's what this is all about. I'm supposed to be useful to fellow alcoholics and, you know, get my will in line with God's will. And, you know, I kind of, the 10th step talks about, you know, we're supposed to grow in understanding. And that's happened gradually, you know, and it's just a blessing. You know, I'll never forget when I first walked into the primary purpose group. It was when we met downstairs, down in that room, you know, and I walked, came from my apartment over there, went down those back stairs, and Tom I's up at the podium, and I think I'm in the most uncomfortable spot on the planet, sitting in that chair in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, until Tom I says, very proudly, he pronounces, we not only have these meetings, we go to detox centers and we go to prisons. And I'm like, those are two places I'm really trying to avoid. And I couldn't get out that back door fast enough. You know, I went past the bathrooms, out that back door, and went back in my hole for a couple more months. because that scared the crap out of me. But, today I realize that that's exactly what it's all about. I mean, I do, what I do, I know is nowhere near enough for what AA has done for me. I can never repay what AA has given me. But going to the detox with Diane, and I look forward to that. Because I went through that place. I skipped over it because I drank alcoholically for over 32 years, and I've been in recovery for 7 years. So it's hard for me to talk about recovery intelligently or from experience for very long. So. And that's why I stayed drunk for so long. I apologize. But, during that time that I was living in that house over there, I went to work one day and taking my pills and had my beer, and I'd go to work, and, I woke up in that detox unit. I had blacked out and passed out at work, and I wake up in the detox. So, for me to go there now and sit in the chair talking to the people in there, I mean, that is really significant to me. It's really an eye-opener. And, I don't know that I help anyone when I go in there, but I know it certainly helps me. So that's another reason why everything I do for Alcoholics Anonymous, come up here and make an idiot out of myself, I get more out of it than you do, I am sure. Going to detox, I get a lot out of that. I'm active in our home group. I love my home group. And what's wonderful about it is not what I get out of it, seeing the new people, the men from Bethesda House, the women from the Bethany House, they come and they're getting involved. And it's just watch, it's, I can't remember the page number, and it's not important. It's something you must not miss, to have a host of friends, to see a fellowship grow. And there are so many inspiring pages in this book. I don't want to, I brought the book just as a reminder where I came from, and I'm not going to read anything out of it because you have all read it. I am grateful, and for me, gratitude is an action. It's not an emotion. It's not a state of being. It's an action. And I wear my emotions on my sleeve. You can tell if I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, and that's just my personality. But deep down, I am truly grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. I am getting back to the point where I'm kind of high on life again. I have a really, really insignificant job, and I don't care. I've worked at the same company for 7 years. They trust me. They give me all the leeway. They know that I know what I'm doing, and I feel I do a good job for them. And I know there's more on the horizon. I got out of my profession for quite a few years. I quit playing golf for quite a few years because nothing else but alcohol and drinking mattered in my life. Today, we just had a little weekend getaway with some guys. We went down to South Carolina and, played golf and had fellowship and, just something that I never thought that I would do. I am a recluse. I am a lone wolf. I live alone. Well, I have 2 cats. They're happy that I'm out tonight. So take a break. They love it when I go in the closet and put on something nice because they know I'm going to be gone for a while. So I've given them a break. I find that the fellowship of the Spirit is vitally important for me, but the fellowship, which is Alcoholics Anonymous, these meetings, my home group, I need you all, gosh, it's time to close. There's stories in the back of the book, and the ones that I relate to the most with are the 3rd section of They Nearly Lost All, and there's one in particular in there. This guy, he says some really wonderful things, but one of the things, it's the daily reflection for November 22nd, I believe it is, and he said there's only 2 sins. One is to interfere with the growth of another, and the other is to interfere with one's own growth. And there's only one law, and that law is love, And I haven't sinned today. I love you all very much. And that question that haunted me my entire life, what do you want to be when you grow up? I now know that I want to be more like you all. Thank you.